Psycho stepmom stalks my daughter online for a year before we even know she exists. I met my wife Cora in high school, and she was 6 months pregnant at the time. The bio father Jake was a complete deadbeat, and the only reason I even met the two of them was because my friend was sleeping with Jake behind Cora's back and wanted to introduce me to him. When the baby Elena was born, Jake dropped out of school and changed his number to avoid Cora and the new baby. By the time Elena was 8 months old, Cora and I had started dating. We graduated together, moved across the state to college, and went on with our lives as a happy little family. Fast forward 5 years, we have never heard from Jake until Elena was 3.5 years old. She and Cora still technically lived with Cora's mom on breaks and such in the same house they had always been, just a few blocks from Jake. Out of the blue, he sends us a message on FB, asking to have Elena over for the weekend. He had gotten his new girlfriend pregnant and they had rushed to get married. Now the new wife, Susan, wanted Jake to have his daughter back. It had been 5 years she didn't know him, and we didn't know what to say at first. Out of curiosity, we checked out both Jake's and Susan's profiles, and I nearly fainted. For nearly a year, Susan had been collecting photos of Elena from anyone's profile that would share a picture of her. Not only that, she was posting them on her profile as if she had been the one to take them. This included shots from a Mother's Day photo shoot we had paid for. The photographer posted some of the shots with her watermark on her page before we even got the shots back, and Susan copied them all to post on her profile, saying it was the best Mother's Day gift ever. Her baby was not yet born. Scared and angry, we found it best to ignore their request. There was no way we could get Elena to go along with spending the weekend at a stranger's house anyway, so they sued us for full custody and child support. WTF. All hell broke loose when Cora was served papers at work. Immediately, we shut down our FB profiles because that's how Susan knew where to send the papers, and told all our friends and family to take down any pictures of Elena. But that wasn't enough to stop her. Turns out, in addition to stealing photos, Susan also made several fake profiles to add friends and family and get information about us. We never added anyone we didn't know, but other family members had. There were 7 fake profiles altogether. When we had them all removed and reported, Susan started sending her friends and family to attempt to add us and gather more information about us. She showed up at Elena's Christmas show at school when we didn't even tell them where she went to school. She repeatedly showed up at Cora's work to try to get her in trouble and called the cops on us for several false incidents. The reasons listed by their lawyer for seeking full custody were because we're lesbians, and that's bad for kids. We abuse Elena, which never once happened. We do drugs, for which we even offered to do a urine test, but she wouldn't spring for it since we would all have to foot that bill. Well, based solely on the fact that over 5 years prior he had signed the voluntary acknowledgement of paternity, Jake got visitation rights. Cora retained primary custody and visits were begun slowly so Elena could get to know Jake. Eventually, it moved to every other weekend for the whole weekend. But Elena never made it the whole weekend. They made her sleep on the floor in their basement, so she never liked staying there for more than a night. The custody settled, we opened a support case, and of course Jake tried everything he could not to be responsible for support. When he ducked out over 5 years ago, we never asked him for a dime. But they wanted all this, so we did it all. You wouldn't believe the excuses he'd try. Even though they won, Susan didn't stop trying to destroy our names online and attempting to turn everyone from high school still in our hometown against us. She wanted a happy little family, and Elena was throwing a wrench in her plans by not calling her mommy right from the get-go. When they showed up at her spring concert uninvited, Susan demanded that Elena take her around and introduce her, so Elena introduced them as her step-parents. Susan got pissed at Elena for this because she and Elena had the same birthday. Susan insisted that she was supposed to be hers. One night when Elena was at their house, we got the usual call to come and get her, only it was Susan's mom on the phone and not Jake. They lived with Susan's parents and neither drove, so her parents had to take them everywhere. When we get to the pickup point, Elena is in tears and Jake hops into his in-laws' truck without an explanation. Turns out Susan lost her cool when Elena didn't want to stay the night again, so she sat Elena down and read her the custody agreement line for line. Then, she looked that 6-year-old angel in the eye and told me she could have her mama, that's me, arrested anytime she wanted to for not complying with the custody agreement. Susan was convinced the only reason Elena wouldn't like her was because we told her not to. Well, for the next week, I get to force Elena onto the school bus in tears because she's convinced I will get arrested while she's at school and I won't be there waiting for her in the afternoon. Just talking about that breaks my heart all over again. Thanks for that, Susan. But this story ends with some poetic justice. Maybe they were tired of fighting with the little girl, maybe she realized just how badly she had messed up, who knows, but before the next visitation, we got an email from our lawyer explaining Jake wanted to sign over his rights. It had only been 3 months since he had enacted. This allowed me to formally adopt Alina. We were ecstatic. We agreed and everything fell into place. She never had to see them again, and Cora and I could shoulder the online attacks and occasional face-to-face confrontation from everyone in their family seeing them as the victims. Life got back to normal, and we began to heal. But their story wasn't finished. 2 weeks ago, I got a message from Jake's sister-in-law who never really took part in the harassment. She's married to his younger brother and just had their first baby. She was hoping we would consider letting Alina get to know her baby since they are biologically cousins. That isn't the way we see family in this house, but I understand other people emphasize DNA. It turns out that the 3 kids Susan ended up having with Jake are no longer allowed to visit his side of the family, and Elena is the only biological cousin left. Why? Because Jake raped an 11-year-old girl he and Susan were supposed to be babysitting. He went to prison and Susan divorced him, banning his entire family from seeing any of the kids. My heart bleeds for the little girl who had her life ruined. But I am human, so forgive me when I say that after watching Susan twist my little girl all up inside, I feel satisfied with her serving of karma.